This segment of In the Field Radio is brought to you by Tattoo Shop Radio, Culture Shock, Wapter Music FM, powered by Zeno.fm, with additional monitoring through online radio box. Welcome back to In the Field Radio. I'm Erin Boogie. I'm here with Miss Lady D.
What's going on?
And we are so excited to have James Sanders in the building.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Erin and Lady D. What's up?
No,
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time out. We are super excited. You wear a lot of hats. You're a stylist, the weekend news editor at Complex, and
Yeah, child.
published author.
Yes, that's true.
Just introduce yourself to our listeners who might not be familiar.
So, you pretty much covered everything. James R. Sanders, fashion editor, celebrity stylist. But these days I've been going by fashion activist, basically, and social justice writer and speaker. What I've been doing is using fashion as a catalyst to bring about change in social justice. I really believe that what we wear is a lot deeper than just clothes and fashion, and I think that it's history and we can leverage it to bring about change and enlighten people on activism and social justice.
And when did you get into writing?
So I got into writing when I was really, really young, and I started writing stories about the people I don't like, and they all died horrible deaths.
In the writing, right?
In the writing, girl.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, some of them.
I aspire to that level of petty.
No, this
Oh,
is
yeah.
reminding me of
Yes.
because you're dropping the audiobook in the spring. And I feel like
Yes.
nobody could have narrated it better than you. Like nobody would have been able to do that. So
Awesome.
that you writing about the people you don't like, it reminded me of You Ain't Gotta Lie, Craig. I started hearing it, I was like, oh.
Listen, okay? And that's a true, everything, in the book is a true story. Quite naturally, for You Ain't Gotta Lie, Craig, I switched the names because I was telling one of my closest friends, her personal business. And I did get permission, but she said, all she asked was that I just use another name. So, but that's 100% true. Not one detail was changed. And, that's crazy. Some of these men, child. Some of these men.
If that's not the truth, I don't know what is.
So the activism is not just based on fashion and art and writing. It's
Right.
using that as a catalyst for all social justice.
Absolutely, but specifically race. Specifically race, and most profoundly race. And the idea was birthed out of the Gucci and Marc Jacobs collections of 2017 and 16, and also Tom Ford, his collection as well. And I was writing for Vogue Italy at the time, and a few other publications as well, but most prominently Vogue Italy. And what I saw was a very strong throwback to Foxy Brown, Cleopatra Jones, and all the blaxploitation films of that era, the 70s. But no fashion journalist was writing about it, and no fashion journalist was crediting, Pam Grier and Tamara Dobson and all of the beautiful Lola Falana, all the beautiful Black models and actresses that were creating these trends and making these fashion statements then, and the ladies of the Black Panthers and the men of the Black Panthers, and Dolomite and what they were doing, Superfly, and these designers were getting credited with creating these trends, essentially. And I found that it was unfair. And so what I did was I wrote about it and was told not to. And that's when I realized we had a problem. And so I began to create a niche that married race and fashion, which before that had become very, or was very unconventional. And you wouldn't think the two existed. And in the past, fashion was considered to be very diverse. And in reality, fashion is very conservative, and not necessarily in dress or the traditional sense, but in terms of the people that run the industry. And that distinction is very important. The industry itself is extremely conservative, very traditional, and very set in its ways. And that has to be said, and it has to be known as well. And so fashion and race became a platform of mine, and I've taken it and run with it. It's been important to me to bring awareness to certain things, like the fact that even today, we were discussing the Elsa Schiaparelli collection that just debuted yesterday. Kylie Jenner was sitting front row with a lion on her shoulder, and 3 of the gowns had lions and tiger heads and things on their shoulder. But if you saw Coming to America in 1991, 2, or 3, you remember the king had a lion on his shoulder. Now, people are acting like Schiaparelli was the first to create that, but if you're old enough like me, or even if you're just in the culture, you know everybody's seen Coming to America. It's a classic. And even if you haven't, Africans have been doing that for eons. Egyptians have been doing that for eons. But you see, that reference will never get credited. And so I just feel like I always say, in reference to, fashion and race, we need to stop begging for a seat at the table that we built.
Right.
And that's very important.
Don't you feel like that happens to a lot of Black creators and journalists and artists, and like that's continuously happened?
Absolutely.
And it's especially now, I know most recently with TikTok, that the Black creators were creating the trends, and then they were becoming viral, but the white content creators were being credited with creating the trends.
100%.
Now, how come there's no system of accountability? Like, there's no, hey, this is theft of this intellectual property. Like, there's no way to prove that?
So I think that it's been proven, and I think that America has an issue with accountability. And I think that issue with accountability goes back to the discussion of reparations. And I think that we must first understand that reparations is not a new discussion. It's not a new point. The first Americans to get reparations were white men, because African slaves were considered income. And so when slaves were freed, white men were given reparations because slaves were considered loss of income. The descendants of Benjamin Cumberbatch, Dr. Strange, he was given, we've seen as of late, it's been all over the news, $250 million his family was given for loss of cargo, which is loss of slaves. It's upwards of $250 million. So America has given reparations before. But when it comes to minorities, not just Black people, but minorities as a whole, but for the sake of this conversation, Black people, America has a problem with accountability, and taking responsibility.
It seems like when you talk about reparations in terms of Black people and minorities, it's not going to be monetary. People think land, money, a farm animal, but it seems like you think it's something else, and that we need to accept that and maybe go get our own reparations.
I think that one of the biggest problems that we had is allowing other people to tell us what we are worth and what we are owed. That is probably the grossest miscarriage of justice that exists where the conversation of reparations exists today. Reparations could exist in several different forms. We have issues with the wealth gap between Black America and white America. If all of student loans were wiped out for those who are Black, that would then shrink the racial wealth gap by 98%. That could be a form of reparations. Free education could be a form of reparations. Free mortgages could be a form of reparations. Free land, of course, could be a form of reparations. It could work in a bunch of different ways, but I think that allowing those who are descendants of the oppressors to decide what those who are descendants of the oppressed are to get could be problematic. And I think we really need to start there.
And accept that.
Such a valid point.
Yeah.
Like when you say it so direct like that, it's like, oh, how could these people be, responsible when they're the ones that need to be held accountable?
Right.
Like, I owe you money. And it's like, but you figure out how much you want to give me back, and you let me know. Like, nigga, zero.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
See, this is why I'm super excited to interview you, because you're already blowing my mind. How did you come to the decision to call the book Reparations, Style and Soul, and what that means to you?
Child, it took a while, okay? Because listen, I was going to call it all kinds of things. Like, I was going to call it the style book, really dumb titles. Like, I was going to call it, this is the angry book, the burn book of fashion. Like, I wanted to, I'm very inspired by hip hop and, rap and battle rap too, and street culture. So I was like, I don't know, just random things. And so one day I was on the M train leaving from Ridgewood, where I was living at the time in Queens, going to Harlem, and I was teaching at a paint and pour in Harlem, teaching art. And it just came to me. I wanted a controversial title, but something that I believed in. And I wanted something that people would stop and look through and hopefully be captivated enough to not be able to put down. So in a bookstore, that the title would grab them, the cover would be alluring enough, and then if they picked it up, they'd want to continue to read enough to say, I gotta go, but I'm gonna take this book with me. And so the title of Reparations came up, but I felt like it needed a little something extra. And I always say with my writing, even journalistically, and I've been, a journalist since 2007 professionally. When I was in college, I was still writing professionally for HuffPost. I started as a political correspondent for the Huffington Post, and I covered the Obama campaign the first time he ran for president, which was huge for me because it was historic. And I always say, even in journalism, which is a straight and narrow, newsy kind of style, that I always want my writing to be very soulful. So it was important that the word soul be incorporated. And then, of course, because fashion is my foundation, I had to have fashion in it. But I remember, Diana Vreeland saying that style is eternal and fashion fades. And so it was important that I spoke to the distinction of the two. And so that's where the style and soul reparations, style and soul came to be. And I incorporated all three together. And I knew immediately on that train going from Queens to Harlem that that's what it was going to be. And I just rocked with it, child.
So what came first, the book or the title?
Definitely the book, for sure. I had been working on the book for a while, and I was coming close to the publication date and that I had set. And I said, what am I going to call this book? Like, this is getting bad. Like, child, I can't call it like what I was going to call it. And I kept running it past different friends, and they were like, no, that's stupid. That's a dub. Don't call it that. The streets is not going. And I was like, well, you supposed to be my friend. Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't like that. And they were like, nah, don't call it that. And I was like, okay, well, what? What can I call it? A bullet in a beat down? What if I, like, what? And it was like, nah, don't call it that. Like, what? I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know that. Shoot.
I love the title, and then I love the back cover even more.
Thank you. People haven't been paying attention to the back cover.
No, really? We were reading it back and forth before giggling.
Yes. This book will make you slap somebody, stomp out, twerk. Yes. Listen.
Yo. I was like, I want to feel all these things and then marinate at the end. I was like, yeah.
Yes. Come on.
The book is so beautiful. Like, it
yes.
Just before you open it, what Erin said that she was like, I should redo my living room to match with the book.
Erin, you funny.
I was like, I want this aesthetic around me 24/7. But the thing that I liked about it was that not like you embody journalism and like the social justice and the fashion, and you managed to put that in a coffee table book with beautiful photos. And then like I learned some interesting things. I want to read one thing from the book and then I want to talk about it. So you said,
yes, Erin. I'm sorry, go ahead. I'm just hyped. Go ahead.
Well, you said I was writing for Vogue, Glamour, GQ, which hello, big accomplishments. And
Thank
even
you.
the Huffington Post, feeling overcome by this sense of gratefulness. So you were grateful to be writing for these publications, doing what you love, but you shaped like legendary fashion editor Andre Leon Talley, minus the height, but equal in weight, which I loved that. I thought that was so cute. I felt like I had to prove myself to every white person I sat next to at Fashion Week. In editorial meetings, I had to be sure not to hurt Karen's feelings because white tears could lead to black bullets. Like, and
everybody reads that part.
That is like the first page.
That part.
But it just shoots you like it's like such a like. Well, it's almost
shoot
like,
you, Erin.
Yes, because it's like a punch to the gut, because you're like you feel like the gratitude that you felt writing for these publications, but then also like the trepidation that you felt being in these boardrooms in these predominantly white spaces. Like what was that feeling for you to finally be doing that your voice was kind of stifled when you were doing this? That's like what you said earlier, that you were being told no. So how was that feeling of like, I'm finally here and I'm gagged, I can't do anything?
So it always felt like I was walking on eggshells. So here's the thing. W.E.B. Du Bois and his classic work, probably the book that he's most known for, which is The Soul of Black Folks. He speaks about a double consciousness where Black people are concerned. And the double consciousness is the fact that there is a white America and a Black America that Black people must always be cognizant of when they're out in public. Right? That means that when you're walking, let's say I'm in Bergdorf Goodman's, which is one of the stories in my book, but you didn't hear that from me. Anyway, if I'm in a department store, I must always be aware of the fact that I am Black. Now, white privilege allows a white person the privilege to not have to be aware of their color at any time of the day. Now, double consciousness forces me to be aware of myself and the fact that there are white people around me. So I have to not make sudden movements, because as a bigger person, shaped like Andre Leon Talley in weight but not in height, I must always be aware that my size is a threat. I don't care how painted the nails are, how many beads I have on that are Yves Saint Laurent, the vintage cross, honey, none of that. None of that, the arched brows, they don't care. It is still a threat. And as a Black man, it is something that I must always be aware of because of the consequences therein. That is the double consciousness. And so even in a boardroom, an editorial meeting, I'm being reminded of that constantly, especially when I am the only one there. And so it means speaking only when you're spoken to. It means having to sometimes be the voice for your people. It means making sure that you're not hurting their feelings, even when you don't say anything. It is a lot of pressure. But now let me be clear. That was then. This is now. You see, that's how I felt. And this is the awakening. You see, I wrote Reparations, Style, and Soul, and I've nicknamed it The Big Payback. If I didn't call it Reparations, Style, and Soul, it would have been called The Big Payback. Because to me, we don't have to feel that way. Because any stereotypes, anything that they're going to say about you, call you, accuse you of, you will already be those things anyway. You could be the nicest, soft-spoken person in the world, and you could walk by them and say hello and not say it loud enough, and they'll say that you were being aggressive because you didn't say hello, even if you did and they just didn't hear you.
Mm-hmm.
So you see my thinking is, which is logic, I feel like, is no matter what, in their mind, you will always be what you will be to them, even if it's a good person, because not everybody thinks the same. But you must always take people at face value, even if that face value is a good person or a bad person. So I'm no longer thinking that way, which is why I wrote, I was feeling this way. I was worried about this. I was worried about that. The black bullets may come not giving up my seat or brushing by somebody, and they don't like the way I looked at them. So the white tears may bring the black bullets down to the Starbucks, honey. We've seen stranger things these days. So it don't have to happen at a boardroom. So the control and the intimidation has gone away. But you see, when you begin to think like that, you must accept the consequences that come with it. And by consequences, I mean, when you are no longer controlled, there are, like, your climb becomes met with stubble, and the stairs become steeper. It becomes harder. So that's par for the course. It's always going to be harder when you're not as easily controlled and intimidated. And that's something that must be accepted.
So at what point were you able to move past that feeling and to start feeling freer?
I think when I began to really study my past and my history, I think the very first thing I write in the book is that if you can control someone's mind or past, something along those lines, you can control their future, or you can control their entire culture, something along those lines. I think that once I realized who I was and where I came from, that empowered me. I had no idea that my people were really the foundation of fashion, and that these trends that we see today in fashion going up and down the runways, we created. And so once I figured that out and began to research more, coming from a journalistic background, I'm an avid researcher and a voracious reader. And so you're definitely not going to, like, once I get something, I'm going to keep reading and keep digging. The more I began to find out and read about my people, the more thirsty I became for knowledge and history and facts outside of, what I was learning in school and in college. And the more I learned, the angrier I got. And it wasn't at other people, it was more so at myself. Angry that I didn't know these things, and angry that I let so much time and opportunity go by. But I made it my mission to tell other people and to educate other people so that it wouldn't happen again. Each one, teach one.
Do you think your message being heard?
I do. I do think it's being heard, and I think that it is slowly but surely changing perspective, for sure. And I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because what I realize is that I'm necessary now more than ever. And what I bring and what I say and how I feel and what I am delivering in terms of messaging and perspective is needed. It's very much so needed. So yeah, it's encouraging. It's encouraging because I know I'm helping. If I would have known then what I know now, there wouldn't have been that chapter, that first essay in the book. Can you imagine how many Black men and women, girls and boys who maybe are like style just icons in the making, but are from maybe the projects or the hood and feel like they don't have the pedigree to apply for that internship at Chanel or Dior or Louis Vuitton because they're not like the girls or guys whose parents sit on Amnesty International's board or Mount Sinai, and because they feel like they don't have that pedigree and they don't know enough about their own history to know that Tommy Hilfiger and Ralph Lauren used to drop off in trash bags in Harlem and in the Bronx and in Brooklyn, like samples to test out like their latest collections in the 80s and in the 90s to see how the hood was going to respond to their collections and how, people in the hood were going to style Ralph Lauren Polo and Tommy, and that Pelly Pelly was copied and Mecca, and that was just in streetwear. We're not even talking about the Moors and what they did with the Europeans and seasonal dressing, and like it's just so much. It's really kind of like sad. So it's necessary. It's very necessary.
Sometimes
sure.
I see that still happen, like on Twitter, like someone will create clothes and looks, and then all of a sudden the same style is like on Fashion Nova or Shein or on somewhere else, whatever. How do at-home designers protect themselves or not get discouraged by stuff like that?
So oftentimes they do get discouraged and they don't protect themselves because they don't understand patent law and trademark law. And oftentimes Fashion Nova and these bigger brands will get away with it because they know that the small independent designer cannot necessarily afford an attorney or the patenting and trademark licensing fees that go into protecting your ideas and intellectual property. That can be very expensive. It can be very expensive, but I'm going to put you down on some game. There's something called the poor man's copyright, and it still holds true today. As long as your design still has a United States Federal Postal Service seal on it, it cannot, it will hold up in a court of law. As long as you upload those designs to a YouTube and it has a time mark on it, you see, the internet does not lie. And even if somebody takes it down, it still has a timestamp on it. So, at the end of the day, and that's free to do. So at the end of the day, there are still ways to protect you, protect yourself and your ideas. You just must look outside of the box. You should always work towards patenting yourself the correct way, but I'm a firm believer in by any means necessary. And until you can get to point A, definitely do what you have to do.
See, and I feel like in the music industry, people have a little bit more of an understanding of the poor man's copyright because of producers or having, a recorded song that will get stolen. Like you said, you have that timestamp of when it was created, whether it be in Pro Tools or whatever DAW the producer's using. So I think it's interesting that is something that can stand up in the fashion industry and is not as widely known.
Right.
Yeah.
Literally, all it is taking a picture of the sketch or making the design, putting it on a model, putting it on yourself, putting it on your daughter, your cousin, your niece. If it's menswear, your father, your brother, whoever. Upload that picture to YouTube, do a silent video.
That's
There
so
you
good
go.
to know.
There you go. You won't trick me. You may play games, but you won't get James.
I like it.
Talk a little bit about what goes into publishing a coffee table book, because this is not just pictures. So you definitely had to procure those. So did you do photo shoots with the models? And then obviously integrating that with your writing, you had to James's 10 shopping commandments, you had to sit down and really come up with all this stuff and piece it together.
So yes. So first of all, the cover of the book is the model is, she's signed to, I believe, Major. That's Ebony Jackson. So she's a New York agency signed girl, but the gown she's wearing is designed by me. Speaking of intellectual property, that's actually, wow. Duh. So that gown is my gown that I designed, sketched and had made. It was the fabric I flew to India to source myself and designed. We were in New Delhi.
James, I feel like you were holding out on us when we asked you the
Me
many
too,
hats
girl.
that you
I
wear.
forgot. I forgot, child. I forgot, girl. Honey, I was in the ghettos of New Delhi, honey. I drank the water, girl. When I got back to America, they had to pump my stomach, girl. They told me not to drink the water. I thought I was being slick, getting a Pepsi from the airport KFC, girl, but I was messed up. Child, I flew over Russia and whatnot, but when I got back to America, I was feeling a little funny, girl.
Oh no.
But anyway, I designed the dress, but every single photo in the book is creative directed and styled by me. All of the models are Black and the photographers are Black, and hair and makeup is Black as well. So it took me about 3 years to do all the photo shoots. Some of them have appeared elsewhere in other magazines, styled by me. And so, because one of them is from Vogue, a Black Lives Matter photo shoot that I did. And one of them appeared in a bridal magazine that I did. And then a lot of them are exclusively for the book. One of the male models is from season 18 of ABC's The Bachelorette. And he appeared in a couple of the shoots in the book. And yeah, like it took a lot, but a lot of the photographers that I've worked with have been longtime collaborators. And it was great because a lot of them I've worked with in the past, and I've helped either get them like their first editorial, or I've worked with them on publishing in magazines. And so, you know, calling on them for a favor, it was easy to do. And so, yeah, like it was kind of serendipitous, I want to say, and it all worked out.
I just love everything about this book, like the way it all came together, and like you with the sketches and the designs, and the networking with the, you know, people, you know, with the photographers, and, you know, people that you've grown along the way. Like, I think that's just such a beautiful moment to have it all come together and be this amazing book that also has such an impact on the world.
Appreciate it. I hope it really does have an impact on the world.
It's like a labor of love,
and not just a couple of people. And not just a couple of people. So, Lady D, you had asked me what the hardest part of being a stylist is, and I'll say outside of the book, because the book was styling for the book was pretty easy, but styling in general, it's hard because if you're like doing personal styling, the hardest part about that is everybody thinks that they can dress. So they'll hire a personal stylist, and then they'll tell you what they want to wear. So it's almost like, well, why am I here, sis? Like, what did you hire me for? If you're a celebrity stylist, I worked with Guillermo Diaz, who played Huck on Scandal. And this was when
Scarface and Half Baked. That's how we remember.
Period. And this was when Scandal was huge. So I was dealing with his publicist, his manager, everybody. And I was styling him for Good Morning America, The View, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, the Emmys, the Oscars, the NAACP Image Awards. And there was so much bureaucracy, and garments were getting back when they wanted garments to get back. And then come to find out, he had a wardrobe budget, but his manager was having me invoice for grooming instead of wardrobe. And so crookedness was going on, and I had to quit that job, and it just was so much. So with celebrity styling, it can be a lot of red tape. You have to really have the patience with it. And then editorial styling, which is magazine work, the hardest part about that is that even if you're doing the biggest magazines like Vogue or Glamour, there's no money involved. You think that there was, but there isn't.
That's crazy.
Not a dime.
See, you learn something new every day.
Yes, you do, child.
You do. Do you have a client horror story?
Yes, I do, child. That one, the one with Guillermo Diaz, Half Baked. Child, I was waiting for paychecks all summer, in 2015, and nobody knew. But I was living in Philadelphia at the time. I had just finished my master's in English, and I was styling him from a dorm room in Philadelphia. And they thought I lived in New York because at the time, now I do live in New York. I've been living in New York for several years now. But at the time, child, I was living in Philadelphia. I had my little Google Voice New York number. So I let people think I lived in New York, honey.
Oh, yeah.
That was how I was scamming the people, honey.
Goodness.
But child, me in that dorm room, honey, it was so funny. I had like over $50,000 worth of suits and Swarovski crystals and jewelry and Rolexes and like shoes and all that because it was the top show. And I was shipping everything back and forth to Beverly Hills, and he was calling me like sometimes. I think I still have his number. I don't know if it changed or whatever, but we had gotten so cool. But unfortunately, like his manager, she was awful. And she was like telling me, never call ABC, never call ABC. But after the first month of me not getting paid, I was like, I'm going to have to call ABC. Because I want to know where my money is, child. And like, that's when they were like, oh, well, he had a wardrobe budget. And I said, but she told me all he had was a grooming budget. And they were like, no, he has a wardrobe budget. You're James Sanders, the groomer. I said, no, I'm the wardrobe stylist. And they said, oh, no, we've been giving his wardrobe budget to such and such. I said, that's his manager. Oh. I'm his wardrobe stylist. So y'all know what happened.
And she telling you not to call them. The exact people that you need to call.
That's why.
Idiot.
Who else have you styled?
One of the cast members from Pretty Little Liars. Her name is Natalie Hall. And she played one of the girls' evil sisters. One of the girls from True Blood. One of the girls from Destiny's Child, the original four, for an appearance on the Wendy Williams show. Montel Williams for all those late night commercials you saw. I did the first campaign for Marvel's Luke Cage on Netflix before it got canceled. I did the first campaign for Queen Sugar on the Oprah Winfrey Network. Nicholas Ash, that appeared on Harper's Bazaar. Alonzo Arnold, there are some, Jonathan Sadowski, he did a show, Young and Hungry, on ABC Family before that network got canceled. Riley Christian, most recently, I did a campaign for ABC's The Bachelorette last year. That was cute. Somewhat.
Oh my goodness. So we're ABC. You and ABC's.
Yeah, now we know to avoid ABC.
The list goes on. But check out my website, jamesrsanders.com, and you'll see some of the names under celebrity.
Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you too before we get super far off the topic is talk about your book reception, because it looked so amazing. That venue,
you should have been there. You was invited.
That's a fact. It was COVID times.
Well, the event was incredible. It happened at Skylark, which was at West 39th Street, a little bit off of Times Square. And I was just amazed, like the amount of people that showed up. We were expecting 35, 65 people showed up. And it was on a Monday. So the fact that many people showed up on a Monday, the incredible sponsors, Olaplex, Shea Moisture, Heaven's Sake / Heaven's Sake. Let's see, Danessa Myricks, DeFeel hair company, the candle company, Olfa Factory. I always mispronounce them. Like, such amazing people. Florals by Maureen Jean Baptiste, who did Oprah Winfrey, who's Oprah's florist. Like, just amazing installations. And it was an incredible situation. I couldn't believe that it went off without a hitch. So many people were there, and we had Variety there. TMZ was there. The New York Post was there. I just, Hip Hop Basement, The Source, everybody it just was incredible. And like, I didn't think, because I knew I was respected, but I didn't think I was liked like that. So that was nice. Aww. You know, it was cute to be liked.
Yay.
I knew I was respected. I didn't think I was liked like that. So that was nice.
That's
Those
beautiful.
views look unbelievable from that venue too. Yeah. Like, it had such a gorgeous aesthetic.
I know. Yes.
I know I picked it.
We had an open bar, gourmet, light bites. It just was really beautiful. So, yes.
Do you think you're going to go on a book tour?
Oh, definitely. Miami, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, and hopefully Essence Music Festival. We are #1 in Essence. My book is a #1 Essence magazine book, which is incredible.
Congratulations.
To be #1 in Essence. Thank you. I can't believe that, child.
We believe it.
I believe.
Yes, thank you. So I'm really hoping to set some amazing things up. In February, I really want to, for Black History Month, try to go big. And then obviously for Juneteenth, I really want to do some big things as well.
You'll definitely have to keep us posted so we can keep our listeners posted.
So we can go.
Yeah, that too. That too.
I mean,
hello. But I want our listeners to go too.
Yes.
So what can we expect next? I feel like you probably have something like
Yes. So Reparations Style and Soul is, as you know, in the spring. The book itself is coming to audio. There will be a few additional essays added. And yes, and in February, we are launching the merch collection, a very small capsule collection of sweatshirts and tees that are inspired by 80s and 90s streetwear culture.
Oh, I love it already.
Yes. I'm actually doing the photo shoot this weekend, styling the photo shoot this weekend to go with that. And the last thing is Reparations Style and Soul will be transitioning into a monthly column, actually, that people can subscribe to as well through Substack, that can be delivered to their inbox monthly, once a month. And we'll have fun ideas and conversation topics and points about, like, does buying Black, is there a correlation between buying Black and interracial dating and small handbags? Does it make you kind of get rid of the baggage, emotional baggage that you have, because with smaller bags you have to carry less? And so what does that do mentally when you can't bring all of your stuff with you? So,
stress me out.
It makes me get a second bag, and now I have 2 bags.
Stuff everything in there.
Right. So, with a few styling suggestions as well at the bottom. So, curated and styled by James, of course. So, yeah, it's going to be fun.
Like, what should people stop doing?
A trend or trends?
Oh,
girl.
My goodness. Maybe one or two before we go.
Child, I am so sick and tired of neon. I'm so sick and tired of neon, but honestly, in the book, I talk about trends in general, and I think I'm glad you brought that up, Erin, because I always talk about fashion like friends, and that's what I write in the book. You know, your friends think of your friends like your essentials, right? And so you don't, I'm a firm believer in like no new friends. You want to be careful about how you curate your circle, right? And so when you think about trends, that new, exciting, shiny thing that everybody else is going up for, right? You want to be careful about how you incorporate that into your circle, because one bad trend can spoil the sanctity of what you have going on. Even if that trend is popular, it may be good for them. That don't mean it's going to be good for you, baby. So think very clearly before you put that thing in your closet. It may stand out like a sore thumb. So
like neon,
like neon, honey. Okay.
Can I read the commandment?
May not work for you. Come on, girl. Come on. Because
I had bookmarked the James's 10 shopping commandments, and number 1 is watch out for trend items. They're sometimes like people. Oh! Don't you hate it when someone brings a new friend to the group and they don't mesh with anyone? An outsider can mess up the vibe real quick. Think of trend items like that. If you know who you are, your wardrobe should be consistent with everything serving a purpose. If the trend item doesn't look like it at least fits in, don't buy it.
Did you get what you need, Lady D?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Let the church say amen.
Amen.
There you go.
Is there anything else you want our listeners to know?
Anybody who's listening to know this: never allow anyone to make you feel like you don't belong in a space that you got yourself to. If you got yourself there, you belong there. This industry, fashion, entertainment, music, and media, all 3 of them, maybe it was 4, I don't remember, are based on intimidation and power. Power only works if there are those without it. Those without it, you want it. Those who want it are intimidated by it. Do not allow yourself to be one of those people. Realize who you are and the fact that you got yourself there. That is your power. Your hustle is your power. Understand who you are. Never forget that. If you do that, you will never be defeated. Real gangsters move in silence and violence. Take it from your highness.
So many gems. All right, let our listeners know where they can find you.
James R. Sanders, one word, on Twitter and Instagram. The website is exactly the same thing, jamesrsanders.com. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for taking the time out.
Yes, I appreciate you.
Hey, are you thinking about starting your own podcast? Well, you can stop overthinking it, because the hardest part is actually getting started. And that's where Buzzsprout comes in. Buzzsprout makes it easy to launch your podcast and has already helped over 100,000 people just like you start and grow their own podcast. With Buzzsprout, you can have your show listed on all major platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You'll get a great-looking podcast website, audio players you can embed on other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, tools to promote your episodes, and more. Stop waiting. Start your own podcast today and get a $20 Amazon gift card. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes below. This lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, and it helps support our show.